WWE are reportedly disappointed with NXT 2.0. We have some more NXT superstars in SmackDown dark matches this week. And has Jon Moxley's first feud since returning to AEW been revealed? Find out in just a bit. So, one of the more unpopular decisions in, recent wrestling times has been the rebranding of the yellow brand NXT, going from what it used to be, NXT 1.0, all of the memories, leave the memories alone and all that. Going from that to what it is now, which is more akin to a traditional WWE developmental territory. And it's been a very drastic change. It's seen a lot of releases. It's seen a lot of new talent kind of very quickly elevated to a TV position. And people have been sort of split down the middle on it. There are some people who are very much enjoying NXT 2.0, and that's great. And there are some people who are not so much enjoying NXT 2.0, and that's also a really valid standpoint. So WWE are apparently quite concerned about everything that's going on. And apparently, according to WrestleVotes, according to their source, they said internally WWE is said to be disappointed with NXT 2.0 in its first 4 months. The source said they thought fans would gravitate toward the newer stars quicker than they have. Could it just be too much too fast? Either way, I didn't expect any changes to the concept just yet. So it's an interesting reveal that that they're not planning on changing anything up, but at the same time I don't think it's that surprising.
No, it is. For me, NXT 2.0 sort of hasn't found its real identity yet, because it's still trying to be sort of like main roster WWE, but just like testing these new gimmicks before potentially putting them on the biggest stage of Raw and SmackDown, and just bringing out these wacky gimmicks that you never know what might catch on. Like, for example, Tony D'Angelo is caught on like a house on fire, while you've got the likes of, I don't know, pick any of the other ones that haven't really worked so far. But then you have, spliced in the middle of that, in all the sort of main events, we've seen very NXT 1.0 matchups taking place. This week being a fine example of that, was Volta taking on... Well, he was Volta then.
GUNTHER!
He wasn't GUNTHER till the end of the match. He was Volta then, but he was taking on Roddy Strong, and that was a very NXT 1.0 match. You've got the likes of Carmelo Hayes.
Yeah.
He's still very much NXT 1.0. So I think it's struggling a bit to find its real identity. I can see why they're trying to be sort of horses for all kind of courses. I like that about variety. Is the best thing about pro wrestling shows.
Yeah, it's spice of life, right?
Yeah, spice of life and all that stuff. But it's not surprising to see how the ratings have been tumbling, because NXT very clearly had an identity for so long, and now it's sort of gone more towards what the main roster was, which is what diehard NXT fans probably weren't watching anyway.
Andrew Zarian of the Mat Men podcast also got in on this, saying that he spoke to his source at WWE regarding the WrestleVotes report, and according to Andrew Zarian's source, a lot of the blame is being put on the abruptness of how everything was changed, and apparently fan perception of the product isn't helping either. So it sounds like WWE are aware that fans are sort of indifferent, I feel like it seems, to NXT 2.0 as it is now, because as I said, we have some very passionate fans for it, we have some very anti NXT 2.0 fans, and there are just a lot of us. I think I'm kind of in the middle, where I'm just sort of like floating, and I'm just waiting for it to find out what it is.
Yeah, there are certain parts of the show that are still fantastic, but there are parts that is just too jarring for like someone who has watched NXT for the longest time. And I guess the abruptness might just be the big issue there, because I'll never forget that first episode of NXT 2.0. First of all, you tune in and you just see the bright lights, the different setting. A lot of people don't like the production value of NXT 2.0.
It looks like 50-50.
I don't mind it, me. I like that it's different. I like how they brought back the floating camera angle from 2016 SmackDown. I like that it's different. So like when you turn it on, you know that's NXT 2.0, and I think that's a good thing personally. Yeah. And you have all the first couple of weeks of NXT 2.0, there was just literally 50 gimmicks gone. Just there you go. That's who they are. Just deal with it.
You just got bombarded. So hopefully it's something that is gonna, as it slows down, as it starts to find its rhythm, we're all gonna start to get on board with it, and hopefully it is more good wrestling, because there can be as much wrestling in the world as we want, but if it ain't good, fingers crossed, they've got, we know they've got all the tools to make this happen, so we just needed to find that rhythm. But keeping it with NXT, and just going back to SmackDown a little bit, as we said that we would in the first video, we had all of those random appearances, we had all these, Jeff Jarrett rocking it, we had all that, but the big thing that happened before the show was that there was a dark match featuring NXT superstars. Who were they, Ross?
Yeah. So it was PW Insider last night revealed that Roderick Strong and LA Knight, yes, the Cultaholic Wrestling Podcast, The Rock himself, they were going to be backstage at last night's SmackDown, but it turns out those two lads had a very, very good singles match that went 9 minutes long. The right result happened because LA Knight won the match. The crowd were invested. Apparently the match was a very competitive one, and I think, Sam, we have finally found the man to dethrone the tribal chief. All the chickadees. All the chickadees. Roman Reigns can't handle LA Knight's Kavorka. He'll rock him in his Corvette. He'll say, hit my music, man. He'll go out there like Elvis, and he'll pin the tribal chief in next to no time whatsoever.
I'm glad he was over, though. I'm glad he was over. I'm glad that the crowd interacted with it. And, you know, Roddy looked good in the images I was kind of seeing. I don't know if we're using one below. We might be. But in the images I've been seeing on Twitter, like, both of them looked in great shape. Like, everybody seems to be on board with it. I would still worry about them going just up to the main roster, but at the same time, I feel like they are two hardened individuals. They might be able to fare slightly better than, say, a newer prospect coming up to the main roster. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think it's a little sort of like local advertising for NXT 2.0. Like, oh, look, you can see these two lads on NXT 2.0 every single Tuesday. Go and watch them, local crowd in unnamed arena. But you look at Elliot. I'm sorry to just sort of discredit Roddy Strong. We all know how fantastic Roddy Strong is. But when you think about main roster WWE, that's LA Knight. Everything about the guy is main roster WWE.
Yeah.
So I think NXT 2.0 is not where LA Knight should be. He is just main roster. He should just be on there.
He should be there by now. He's got more than enough experience. You know, everybody knows that. So he's somebody I think would definitely fare well if he was given that chance and rip off the hands of every single opportunity that was given to him, because he just looks like the type of guy that maximizes stuff like that, doesn't he? We potentially have Jon Moxley's first feud since returning. So we reported, of course, on the reaction to Jon Moxley's return promo. But he made his sort of big return at Rampage last night, taking on Ethan Page, like his return to action. And, you know, he defeated him via submission in a fierce 10-minute match. But it's not really the match that was the important thing here. It was as Moxley was making his exit. He walked out through the crowd. He then bumps in as he's about to, you know, round the corner, go through the fire escape. There's Bryan Danielson. And Bryan Danielson's like applauding, smiling, nodding, kind of, you know, clapping positively toward him. Moxley kind of gently stares him out and then just walks off. And Bryan's face goes from one of happiness to one of concern / seriousness.
The smile just goes, doesn't it?
Yeah, the smile kind of fades off and he looks like he's just thrown himself deep into thought. So, could you imagine this, man? Just give us it now. Give us it on Beach Break now.
I imagine we're going to be building this one for the first pay-per-view in sort of March time, whatever that one is. So it's obviously a match. It's a fantastic prospect. Just harken back to the sort of the Shield and Team Hell No days. But I don't want to say seriously, but you know what I mean. Team Hell No is a very sort of lighthearted thing. The Bryan Danielson we're seeing today, I've said on the Cultaholic Wrestling Podcast, like comparing it to sort of serial killer documentaries where you have an interview with someone from their youth and you go, their face used to be so nice, but then their face changed and then they started killing folk. That's what Bryan Danielson is for me in AEW. His face has changed. He's an evil little man. So seeing him versus Moxley...
His eyes are black, like a doll's eyes.
We all know how different Jon Moxley is to Dean Ambrose, and just seeing those two just clobber each other is a prospect we just need to see. And it's going to be teased and teased and teased for weeks and weeks and weeks, and we'll just have to enjoy the journey.
Yes. Now, we're going to finish off this second edition of the news for today, your lovely weekend bumper wrestling news. Just, I guess, a little bit of housekeeping regarding the GUNTHER situation. We're kind of just going to sum up everything we know so far on it. So just from a standpoint of who was responsible for the name, because obviously WWE have now abandoned the Gunther Stark trademark. We've been reporting on this all week, but just as a means of kind of omnibus edition, you know, when you sit down, watch 9 episodes of Emmerdale because you've got nothing else to do. So WWE moved to abandon the trademark a couple of days back, as I said. The choice was a bit baffling to change his name in the first place because Gunther Stark turned out to be the name of a U-boat commander from World War II. And this hasn't really led to conversation dying down, abandoning the trademark. It's conversations now shifting to like who came up with the name, why wasn't it checked, why did you change his name? Now, on the origins of the name, we've got the Wrestling Observer reporting that those close to Walter have said that he's incredibly left-leaning as a person, comes from a working-class family in Austria. Apparently, had he known the name Link, they don't think he would have been okay with being named after a Nazi at all. He's made it his mission, apparently, to not bring negative publicity to German wrestling, and this would have definitely done so. Stark apparently means strong in German, and Gunther Stark, the U-boat commander, isn't a particularly well-known figure in either Germany or Austria. Now, this belief, this leads to the belief that WWE either came up with the name and failed to research it before trademarking it, just going, Gunther's a good German name, Stark means strong, slap them together. Yeah, it's all right. Or there's the possibility that they did Google it and then went, nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to care.
It's just this NXT 2.0 thing again, Sam. We're looking at the weird and wacky gimmicks. Some of them are a bit insensitive, a bit tone deaf, and you would maybe see that sort of gimmick happening in NXT 2.0 with the people running the show who are doing so at the moment.
Yeah. So, as for the reason why it was changed, do you want to take that one, Ross?
Yeah, the reason it was changed is once again coming from the Wrestling Observer. They said the reason why is because WWE is going to feature him on weekly television, and in case he does leave, like everyone thinking of leaving, they want to make sure he couldn't use his name, his WWE name elsewhere. I'm going to sneeze, Sam. Sorry, can you continue?
It's all right, I'll continue. So the thing that makes this quite funny is that, the reason this whole name change has been so baffling WWE is the fact that you brought him in as Walter. You've had him as Walter. He's been a champion as Walter. He's been on a tear as Walter. Everybody's been hyped for the arrival of Walter. Walter finally comes to America, and then you change his name to Gunther. He's already been around the American indie scene as Walter. It's like, imagine they brought in Andre the Giant today. Just give him a completely different name after he's worked all the territories. Like, what? I know that it's because they want to make all the money, on the merchandise. They have the rights to those names. And if Gunther does go on to become Universal Champion just overnight, boom, rocks up, beats Roman, it's going to be a very big deal. They're going to have all of the licensing to all of that and everything, and then he will return to Walter on the indies. But I think that returning to the name Walter, if he ever does so, if he ever leaves WWE, I think that's just going to lead to an even bigger pop from the audience wherever he goes. Because it's like, you're Walter again.
Yeah, obviously we can all understand it from a business point of view because they need to own people's names and make money from them, as you said, and all that sort of stuff. But it's just the way they did it. I think that's where people's issue. It's also what mental. It is as well, but that's its own issue. But how they did it, just him going, no, Walter didn't win that match. It's Gunther. And he made like one little promo saying, now it's time for Imperium to bring our message to NXT 2.0. Yes. But there had to be a bit more. The step from Walter to Gunther needed a more definitive step.
Yeah, you could have done it, but you might have needed to have teased it. Yeah. Have a heel reveal his true identity, or have him kind of get more and more frustrated every time he hears the word Walter. Or it could have been done a lot more cleanly, but I think it's one of those things where it was like, just get him renamed. So
and I guess we've got to say, for the in fairness, NXT 2.0 is a sequential show in its nature. Maybe he could explain on this week's NXT why he's changed his name to Gunther. We need to sit back, Sam. Because this has never bitten us on the arse before as wrestling fans.
There's not a comment underneath every single video.
Yeah, when we sit back and let things play out, it always works out well. The Fiend.
I could see them typing furiously now. Anyway, that's it for your Saturday news from myself and Ross. Have a lovely weekend. Is there anything you'd like to promote, Ross?
Not at all. Couple of tier lists coming up next week, but that's just about it. Anything from you?
Nah, I've just got to crack on, get the news done, get it out, and make sure all you lovely people can watch it. So, catch you in a bit.
Bye.